The Legend of the Horizon. Admiral Cortez of the Valkyrie Dominion stood before the tactical hologram, his four arms crossed in satisfaction as he observed the formation of his fleet. 270 warships spread across the void, each one a masterpiece of Valkyrie engineering, bristling with weaponry that could reduce planets to molten slag. The invasion of the human colony world Epsilon 9 would be swift and absolute, a statement to the upstart species that had defied Valkyrie expansion for too long. Status report, Cortez demanded, his voice carrying the distinctive metallic resonance all Valkyrie males developed after their second molting. Sub-Commander Vexilla approached, her exoskeleton clicking softly against the polished deck. The invasion force is in optimal formation, Admiral. Ground troops are prepared for deployment. Planetary defenses have been analyzed and targeting solutions calculated. We anticipate minimal resistance. Cortez's mandibles clicked in approval. The humans had proven themselves surprisingly resilient in previous encounters, but they had never faced a force of this magnitude. Their colony would fall. Their resources would belong to the Dominion, and the Empress would finally recognize Cortez's value to the Empire. Begin the approach sequence, he ordered. I want troops on the surface within. Admiral, the panicked voice of his sensor officer interrupted. Long-range scanners have detected a vessel approaching from the Arcturus jump point. Cortez turned, irritation evident in the rapid fluttering of his secondary respiratory vents. A single vessel, hardly worth noting, officer. Continue with the invasion preparations. Sir, the officer continued, mandibles trembling. Energy signature analysis confirms it's the HS Horizon. The command center fell silent. Even the environmental systems seemed to quiet as the name registered throughout the bridge. Cortez felt his blood run cold, the circulatory fluid in his exoskeleton slowing to a crawl. Confirm that reading, he demanded, though he already knew the answer. Confirmed, Admiral. The vessel's profile matches all known parameters of the human warship Horizon. Distance, 16 light minutes, and closing. On the other side of that vast distance, Captain Elena Reyes sat in the command chair of the HFY Horizon, a vessel that had become more legend than warship over the past 5 years. At 43, Reyes had silver streaks in her black hair and lines around her eyes that spoke of both laughter and difficult decisions. The Horizon itself was an impressive ship, a Titan-class versatile warfare platform, but not nearly as formidable as the stories that surrounded it. They've spotted us, Captain, Lieutenant Commander Jackson reported from Tactical, detecting increased energy emissions consistent with internal communications and combat preparations. Reyes nodded, unsurprised. What's the composition of their fleet? 270 vessels, primarily Scythe-class destroyers and Dominion dreadnoughts. Conservative estimate puts their firepower at approximately 17 times our maximum output. Around the bridge, the crew continued their duties with practiced calm. None showed fear despite the overwhelming odds displayed on their tactical screens. They'd been here before. Open a channel to Admiral Chen, Reyes ordered. Within moments, the weathered face of Admiral Y. Chen appeared on the main view screen. At 70, Chen was the architect of humanity's most unusual defense strategy, a plan born of desperation when humanity realized they couldn't match the sheer industrial output of the older spacefaring species. Captain Reyes, Chen greeted her. I see our Valkyrie friends have assembled quite the welcoming party. Yes, sir. Preliminary scan suggests this is Admiral Cortez's fleet, the same one that attempted to take Proxima Centauri last year. Chen's expression hardened. Cortez, he's ambitious, even by Valkyrie standards. Are your systems prepared for the demonstration? Yes, sir. Engineering reports all systems nominal. We're ready to proceed on your order. Chen nodded. Remember, Captain, this isn't about destruction. It's about perception. Make it count. Understood, Admiral. Horizon out. As the communication ended, Reyes turned to her crew. Begin the approach sequence. Deploy the quantum field disruptors, but keep them powered down until my command. Let's make sure they get a good long look at us before we do anything dramatic. On the Valkyrie command ship, panic was spreading. Officers hurried between stations, voices raised in urgent discussion. Sub-Commander Vexilla approached Admiral Cortez, who stood motionless before the tactical display. "Admiral, we should consider a tactical withdrawal," she suggested, her voice low enough that only he could hear. "The human vessel is one ship against our 270, Cortez snapped, though his voice lacked conviction. "We outnumber them. We outgun them. By all logical analysis, we should crush them without effort." "With respect, Admiral, logic has little place when discussing the horizon." Vexilla's antennae flattened against her head, a sign of extreme distress among her kind. "You know the reports from the Battle of Ta City, from Mars, from the Protean engagement." Cortez did know. Every military commander in 7 species worth of space knew those reports. The impossible victories, the mysterious weapon systems that seemed to defy known physics, the way the horizon always seemed to appear exactly where it would cause maximum destruction with minimal effort. "You weren't there at Protean," a gravel-voiced fleet commander named Drazkul interjected, approaching from his station. "I was. 300 of our finest ships against that single human vessel. We lost 67 before a shot was fired. Systems simply stopped responding, weapons turning against their own ships, navigation systems sending vessels into collision courses." Cortez's secondary eyes narrowed in skepticism. "Exaggeration, sensor malfunctions, and poor coordination, nothing more." "Is that what you believe?" Drazkul challenged. "Then explain why the Zithrai, the most warlike species in the quadrant, now give human space a wide berth. Explain why the technological concordat of the Pelnuth signed a non-aggression pact after a single encounter with the horizon." The Admiral's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of deep agitation. "Those species lack Valkyrie resolve. We are not so easily frightened by stories." "Stories?" Vexilla questioned. "Admiral, we have visual confirmation from the Protean engagement. We saw what happened to the dreadnought Imperious Will. Saw it torn apart by its own weapons, from the inside out." On the main tactical display, the blinking light representing the horizon continued its steady approach. Still too far for direct engagement, but close enough that its presence loomed over the command center like an approaching storm. "Sir," the communications officer interrupted, "we're receiving a transmission from the Dominion High Command." Cortez straightened his posture. "Put it through." The holographic form of High Marshal Vexthelin, Supreme Commander of all Valkyrie military forces, materialized before them. Even in holographic form, the ancient Valkyrie emanated authority. His exoskeleton, scarred from countless battles and worn from 3 centuries of life, seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. "Admiral Cortez," the High Marshal began without preamble, "our long-range sensors have detected the human vessel horizon approaching your position." "Confirm." "Confirmed, High Marshal," Cortez replied, fighting to keep his voice steady. "The vessel is approaching but remains outside weapons range. I have deployed our forces in preparation for—" "You will withdraw immediately," Vexthelin interrupted, his voice leaving no room for argument. "All vessels, full retreat." The command center fell silent once more, this time with shock rather than fear. Cortez felt the weight of 200 pairs of eyes upon him. "High Marshal," he began carefully, with respect, "we outnumber the human vessel nearly 300 to 1. Our combined firepower is irrelevant." Vexthelin cut him off. "I have reviewed the reports from all previous engagements with this vessel. The risk to our fleet, to the future of Valkyrie military supremacy, is unacceptable." "What of our ground forces already deployed on Epsilon 9? Vexilla asked. A moment of silence hung in the air before the High Marshal responded. "They are to be considered sacrificed for the greater good of the Dominion." Cortez's inner eyelids flickered in shock. 20,000 Valkyrie soldiers, abandoned to the humans. It was unprecedented. It was shameful. It was fear. Pure, undiluted fear, emanating from the highest levels of Valkyrie command. This decision is final, Admiral, Vexthalen continued. Execute emergency jump protocols immediately. Return to Dominion space. As the hologram faded, Korthas stood motionless, the implications of the order washing over him. In 3 centuries of expansion, the Valkyrie Dominion had never abandoned their own troops, had never retreated from a position of such overwhelming numerical superiority. The weapon of whispers. The horizon hung in high orbit around Epsilon 9, a silent sentinel against the backdrop of stars. Below, on the colony's surface, 20,000 Valkyrie troops found themselves in an unprecedented situation, abandoned by their fleet, stranded on enemy territory, with no hope of extraction or reinforcement. In the ship's conference room, Captain Alina Rice sat across from Governor Michaels of Epsilon 9, reviewing the situation reports. The colony's local defense forces had already secured the perimeter around the Valkyrie landing zones, containing but not engaging the alien soldiers. They'd gone defensive, Michaels noted, studying the drone footage. Fortifying positions, but not advancing or attacking. Reyes nodded. They're professional soldiers. They know when they're beaten. She took a sip from her coffee cup, the steam fogging her glasses momentarily. Has Ambassador Liu arrived yet? His shuttle docked 20 minutes ago. He's reviewing the proposed terms of surrender with his team. Good. The sooner we resolve this, the better for everyone. Reyes stood, straightening her uniform. I want to be there when he presents the terms to their commander. Is that wise, Captain? Michaels asked. The Valkyrie are not known for their measured response to defeat. Reyes smiled thinly. Trust me, Governor. It's essential that they see me, that they see the Horizon's captain in the flesh. An hour later, in a hastily established neutral zone, Ambassador David Liu of the United Earth Diplomatic Corps stood before Commander Krivak of the stranded Valkyrie forces. Beside Liu stood Captain Rice, her presence causing visible unease among the alien delegation. Commander Krivak, Liu began, his voice calm and measured. On behalf of the United Earth government, I present these terms for your consideration. The Valkyrie commander, his exoskeleton bearing the distinctive purple markings of the elite Dominion Guard, took the offered data tablet with stiff formality. His secondary eyes remained fixed on Reyes. You are the Horizon's commander, Krivak stated, more accusation than question. I am, Reyes confirmed. Captain Alina Reyes, United Earth Fleet. The Valkyrie's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of agitation. Your vessel's reputation precedes you, Captain. I am curious, though. Why offer terms at all? With your ship's capabilities, you could simply destroy us where we stand. Reyes met his gaze steadily. That's not how we do things, Commander. Not how I do things. Krivak studied her for a long moment before returning his attention to the tablet. As he read through the terms, his posture gradually shifted from defensive to confused. These terms, he began. They are unexpectedly lenient. Ambassador Liu nodded. We have no desire for unnecessary bloodshed, Commander. Your troops will be treated as prisoners of war under the Galactic Sentient Rights Accords. Medical attention for the injured. Appropriate food and shelter. Eventually, repatriation to Valkyrie space when diplomatic channels allow. Krivak's antennae twitched in evident confusion. No weapons testing. No biological sampling. No forced labor. Of course not, Liu replied, genuine shock in his voice. Such actions would violate multiple interstellar treaties, treaties that Earth is a signatory to and upholds. The Valkyrie commander's eyes darted back to Reyes. Then what of the stories? The reports from New Mars, from Procyon, the claims that the Horizon possesses weapons that can turn ships inside out. Reyes exchanged a glance with Liu, who gave an almost imperceptible nod. Commander Krivak, Reyes said, I'd like to show you something. With your permission, I'll have the Horizon transmit certain classified files to your personal device. files that have never been shared outside the highest levels of Earth's government. Suspicious but clearly curious, Krivak agreed. Moments later, his device pinged with the incoming data. As he began to review the files, his reaction shifted from wariness to confusion, and finally to something approaching awe. This cannot be true," he whispered. "I assure you, it is," Rise replied. The files revealed the truth behind humanity's most closely guarded secret. The Horizon wasn't a superweapon at all. It was, by most military standards, merely an advanced but conventional warship. What made it special was something else entirely. A massive coordinated psychological warfare campaign that had turned a single vessel into the bogeyman of the galaxy. The files detailed Operation Whisper, a multi-pronged strategic initiative combining limited but visually spectacular technological demonstrations, carefully planted intelligence, and the strategic exploitation of alien communication networks to spread exaggerated accounts of the Horizon's capabilities. But the Battle of Procyon, Krivak protested. 67 ships lost. I know officers who were there. 17 ships lost, Rise corrected gently. All to conventional weapons and a targeted cyber attack on your fleet's networked fire control systems. The other 50 disengaged and retreated after witnessing what happened to the first group. And the Imperious will. Everyone saw it tear itself apart from within. A specialized computer virus, delivered via your own communication protocols, combined with targeted strikes to your ammunition storage facilities. Impressive, but hardly supernatural. Krivak's mandibles clicked slowly as he processed this information. You mean to say that the most feared vessel in known space is a fabrication, a ghost story? Not entirely, Rice said. The Horizon is real. Its capabilities are significant. But what makes it truly powerful isn't its weapons systems or its technology. She leaned forward. It's fear, Commander. Fear and reputation. The most potent weapons humanity has ever deployed. In the silence that followed, Ambassador Liu spoke. Commander, there's something you should understand about humans. Throughout our history, we've often been outgunned, outmanned, and outproduced by our adversaries. We've learned to fight asymmetrically, to use psychology and perception as weapons when conventional approaches fail. When we first encountered the galactic community, Rice continued, we quickly realized we couldn't match the industrial output of the older species. We couldn't build fleets as large as yours. So we built a legend instead. Krivak's gaze moved between them, his alien features unreadable to human eyes, but his body language suggesting deep thought. Why tell me this? This is clearly your greatest strategic secret. Reyes smiled. Because you're going home eventually, Commander. And when you do, you'll tell others what you've learned here. You want me to expose your deception? Krivak asked, confusion evident. Not exactly, Liu interjected. Think about it, Commander. If you return to Valkyrie space and report that the Horizon's reputation is exaggerated, what happens? Some will believe you. Others won't. Doubt will spread. Uncertainty. Your military will debate endlessly about the truth. And uncertainty, Rise added, is just another form of fear. Understanding dawned in Krivak's alien eyes. Ingenious, he admitted reluctantly. Whether I speak or remain silent, I further your strategy either way. More importantly, Liu said, it opens the door to actual diplomacy. The terms we've offered aren't just humane. They're an invitation. Earth wants peaceful relations with the Valkyrie Dominion. Trade, cultural exchange, mutual prosperity. Your leaders abandoned 20,000 troops rather than face a single Earth vessel, Rice said. That decision will have political consequences within your empire. When those consequences play out, remember that there's another path available, one that doesn't require either of our species to live in fear of the other. 3 days later, as the formal surrender ceremony concluded, Captain Rice received an unexpected communication from her ship. Admiral Chen's face appeared on her private screen, his expression grave. Captain, We've received word from our intelligence assets in Valkyrie space. Admiral Cortez has been relieved of command and faces court-martial for his cowardice in retreating from Epsilon 9. Rice frowned. That seems extreme, even for the Valkyrie. There's more, Chen continued. High Marshal Vexthilon, who ordered the retreat, has been challenged by 3 separate faction leaders. The Dominion appears to be descending into internal conflict over how to respond to the human threat. Sir, that wasn't our intention, Rice said, concern evident in her voice. Operation Whisper was designed to deter aggression, not to stabilize their government. I know, Captain, but we're dealing with a highly militarized society. Their entire power structure is built on projecting strength. Our strategy hit them at their most vulnerable point, their self-perception. Reyes considered this. What happens now? That depends, Chen replied. Our analysts suggest one of 2 outcomes. Either the Valkyrie will double down on aggression to prove themselves, or this might create an opening for the moderates within their political structure. Rice finished. The ones who've been advocating for diplomatic solutions all along. Precisely. And to that end, we've received a highly unusual request. Admiral Cortez has asked for asylum. Rice couldn't hide her surprise. Asylum. On Earth. He claims to have information vital to human security, as well as evidence of corruption within the Dominion's highest echelons. The diplomatic corps is inclined to accept his request, provided you can transport him safely. The horizon would certainly make an impression for his arrival, Rice observed dryly. There's one more thing, Captain, Chen added. Cortez specifically requested to speak with you. He says he wants to meet the commander who defeated him without firing a shot. After the communication ended, Rice stood at the viewport of the Colonial Administration building, looking up at the sky where the horizon orbited silently above. The ship that had become legend. The weapon that wasn't a weapon at all, but rather a story told so convincingly that it had reshaped the political landscape of an interstellar empire. She thought about the human tendency to create myths, to weave narratives that transcended mere reality. Throughout their history, humans had always understood that perception could be more powerful than truth. That fear could accomplish what firepower could not. Captain, her first officer approached. The governor is requesting your presence at the reception. Reyes nodded, turning away from the window. Tell him I'll be there shortly. As she walked toward the sound of voices and diplomatic pleasantries, she wondered how long humanity's strategic deception could last. Eventually, some aggressive species would call their bluff, would push past the fear to discover the truth. But by then, perhaps, the legend would have served its purpose. Perhaps real diplomacy, real understanding between species, would have taken root. And if not, well, humanity had always been adept at crafting new stories when the old ones no longer served. It was, after all, what made them human.